Welcome back to another episode of Dynasty Theory. We have the whole crew here. We got Dan with his big chain necklace thing. What's going on, Dan?
Buddy, fresh off meeting my boy Micah Parsons at his camp. I am now grinding in a 50-round IDP league, just, soaking in every ounce of knowledge for the Dynasty, the DFS season. You just can't learn enough. So a few of our friends of the Discord there wrote me in, and I'm enjoying it, man. And of course I drafted Micah. So life is good.
Nobody is surprised by that. Nobody is surprised.
Did you take him like in the second round?
I got a little nervous at the end of the second. Max Crosby went. Someone else jumped a defensive guy really early. So in the third round, me, that first round draft picks like candy. Did some maneuvering, got an extra pick in the third. Got my boy Micah. I even got your boy Gibbs, Mitch. You'd be proud.
That's awesome.
There you go. What's going on, Mitch?
Oh, man, just another week. Like, we have news. This isn't spreadsheet football season anymore. We actually have training camps. Granted, luckily, no one has really been injured yet, right? Across 32 teams, nothing really big has happened from that standpoint. So that's really nice. There hasn't been any arrests like the Jordan Addison stuff that happened a couple weeks ago. So we're finally in prime football season of hey, what are you actually seeing happen?
We're in training camp. There is some news we want to talk about, some hype pieces we want to talk about, and maybe some concerns that we've seen or heard. I mean, a lot of the information at this point, it's coach speak, right? And it's what beat reporters are seeing. So we always say, take it with a grain of salt. As typically happens in the Dynasty community, if we see a positive blurb for somebody we like, oh my goodness. See, I told you. If we see a positive blurb for somebody we don't like, it's only training camp. So that's the way I think a lot of people approach things. And it's a lot of confirmation bias for a lot of folks. And there are situations where, we might be moving some players up and down based on what we're hearing and seeing. And I know there's a few guys, especially lower end pieces, that I've adjusted. Before we get into it, have you guys seen a lot of trades recently in your Dynasty leagues?
For me, it's picking up more than it was previously. But you could tell the people that haven't paid attention because they'll come in with an offer that is completely out of nowhere. You haven't talked to the guy in 6 months. You're like, oh yeah, you're not really all there on the values yet. But yeah, I do definitely think it's picking up.
See, I'm the other way. I think it's kind of a lull again. And it's crazy because as the season approaches here, but I think for the most part, a lot of people, they've been maneuvering around their leagues. They've been tinkering with their rosters, at least if they've been active up to this point, and they have their roster in a spot that they want to see how things go here over the next few weeks. I think trades have been, very few and far between.
I'd be interested to know when startups peak or if there's the different times too. Cause I know as I'm engrossed in this 50-round draft monster, I'm not really thinking about my other leagues as much. So I wonder if some other owners are also drafting.
No, that's a good point. I know I'm going to start up and that's where my focus is, right? It's not on trying to churn the end of my roster. I mean, and last year, you guys remember, I made it a point of focus for me personally. I was going to hammer waivers. I was going to be on top of it. I kind of have begun to neglect it again. And I don't like that. I don't want to travel down that path. It's a slippery slope. I want to be active on there. But when, like Dan said, you have startups going on, I can kind of pull away from that. All right, well, let's get into some training camp news. There are some things that have happened over the last few days. The quarterback market has just been, it's been a bonanza. So, Dan, Tua Tagovailoa, 4-year extension. We're going to start with him. Last year, he was tied for 12th in yards per attempt, 19th. So it dipped to 19th when he was under pressure. 8th in adjusted completion percentage, and that accounts for drops. 2nd in yards per attempt. Some might say a lot of that is, or it was tied 12th in air yards per attempt, second in yards per attempt. So you could say a lot of that is done after the catch because these weapons in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and he was 7th in touchdown rate. So he played a full season last year. Maybe some of the concern from 2 years ago has subsided a bit. Dan, how are you viewing the contract? How are you viewing Tua? How are you approaching this in your dynasty leagues?
I feel like I'm spending a little bit more time on Tua as I've been getting into the New York Giants HBO Hard Knocks show. I know it's given me the chance because I wasn't subscribing to the Max channel previously, where I'm going back and watching the Hard Knocks of Tua and the Dolphins right at the same time where he got that contract. And he's kind of a squirrely dude, man. Like if you ever watch that, he's kind of hard to take serious, but he didn't go anywhere in my rankings, JB. I'm definitely, to your point, I at least feel better that, hey, if they're going to invest that much in him, they know he's healthy. So, all right, that knocks that kind of piece off. I'm still a little bit worried about Tua's. Their offensive line is still below average. Like he is a guy that if Tyreek got hurt or Waddle got hurt, if he gets hurt, like there's it's a little bit delicate to me, but he's in my second tier. I like the guy. He's maybe in the top of, if we want to call tiers, top 12, next 12. All right. And then there's obviously the echelons of those tiers. He's in the upper end of my second tier, around QB 14, 15, that range. But his contract itself didn't really impact me. I just makes me know that he's healthy. So I'm good with that, but I'm going to sit here and cross my fingers that he stays healthy with that O-line.
Yeah, getting the 4-year extension, obviously it shows that the team has invested in him at least to that extent. Mitch, has this changed anything for you?
No, I think for me with him, it's really hard. I think he's going to fall into the Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins tier of you're kind of okay with having him on your dynasty roster, but no one's ever going to really go out and be like, hey, I want to get Tua this week. Or there's never going to be a huge hype piece about, hey, Tua is going to wreck the league, in fantasy football 2024. He doesn't give you anything rushing. I mean, he averages 5 yards a game for the last 2 years. It's nothing. Kirk Cousins is a better rushing quarterback than Tua is, right? And Tua's young. That's okay to have in dynasty, but you have to know that there is never going to be a huge value bump in that type of quarterback. He's never going to be like, hey, quarterback 10 now, he has a shot at quarterback 5. Where he is his max. And it's okay if you're willing to have that. But I like having the more variance. I like having the guys who can end up getting me 40-point weeks just based mostly off their legs more than anything else. So for me, I completely see why the Dolphins paid him. I see why people like having him, especially if they have him stacked with either Waddle or Hill on their team. But for me, he's just not the type of quarterback that I really want to be walking into the season with, especially if he's somehow my quarterback 1.
I think it's very critical. You look at a player like Tua and the quarterback scoring, I think it's neglected in a lot of conversations, but you talk about Tua, you talk about Jordan Love, who we're going to get to here in a minute, Jared Goff. When you have those fluctuations in scoring and you have a +4 for passing touchdowns versus +6, there is that change within the quarterback landscape. And if you're in a +6 league, the draft I am in right now, guys, I got Tua at the end of the 3rd. Trevor Lawrence went middle of the 2nd. You get 7 points for a passing touchdown. And there aren't that many scoring changes for the positional players. It's 2 PPR for tight end and some really big play bonuses. But when I saw that gap, I mean, I was thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be able to get 2 in that spot. So I think it is critical. It's extremely important to be able to look at your scoring settings and be able to take that into account when you're looking at trades and you're looking at these opportunities to move within the quarterback tiers. So as Mitch always talks about, maybe looking to move up from Tua, I mean, the thing that really intrigues me here with Tua, and that I'm a little bit more, optimistic and in entertaining the buy here more than anything, it's now that Jalen Waddle has the contract, and it's now Tyreek Hill is kind of whistling a different tune. Before it was like, oh, well, when this contract's up, I'm probably going to be done. Now he's talking about maybe restructuring and adding some years. Is that because he had another child? That certainly makes me think like it when I popped out number 3. Well, I didn't pop anybody out, but number 3 came and I'm like, I got to start making more money. So maybe that's where Tyreek's head is at. I think our salaries are slightly different, but let's see. I got Jeff's
I like
comment.
the value you got in round 3, JB.
I got Jeff's comment here. Tua over T-Law. Nick, totally agree. From experience, Tua is way different in 6 points versus 4 points. Mitch, Jason doesn't like the way you say especially.
Yeah, if you want like pronunciation and stuff, that's just not going to happen on the Dynasty Theory podcast. It's just those things don't mesh out all that well. We have Toll, we have me talking in my weird Utah slang. It is what it is.
Yeah, we that happens sometimes, especially here. All right, so let's talk about some Tua trades here. Let's see. Oh, really quick before we even get into the trades, is there a concern though? Like we've seen kind of what happens if Tyreek Hill isn't 100%, if Jalen Waddle isn't 100%, and it kind of points to, well, the way that team is built, they have the weapons to be able to attack it more on the ground. But is there a concern like Tyreek Hill? It's hard to look at the splits with and without him, because how many games was he active, but he got dinged up very early, like tweaked an ankle or something, and then looking at Jalen Waddle. So guys, Dan, let's start with you. Is there a concern there? And does that kind of play into the overall market value right around quarterback 15, 16 for a lot of people, and early third range to all the way to late third range for people?
Yeah, man, I've got to get 2 at a value to feel good about it. And I think, as you described in your draft, JB, you did, that allowed you to get a stud in the 2nd round. And in the 3rd, you went with 2 and you felt better about it. I've got 2 in a couple leagues. So the contract makes me feel good about the security in those leagues. But again, not all these quarterbacks are going to pan out. Just because they got these big contracts doesn't mean things are going to be all rosy for the next 4 years. He's a guy that I could see getting dinged up, banged up. And if I'm in a startup, he's not exactly on my target list. If it falls that way, I'd be glad taking him. I like Tua. I love his offensive coordinator's mind and the head coach McDaniel there. Love his weapons. But there's just a little more risk in there, JB. So it's got to be a value.
I think here's my issue with Tua, right? I think he's a very accurate quarterback that fits that system extremely well with the talent they have around him. I don't believe for 1 second he is a Matthew Stafford that elevates the wide receivers around him, right? If something were to happen to Tyreek Hill for an extended amount of time, I think Tua's ceiling drops considerably. And so, this isn't anything against Tua. That happens with a lot of quarterbacks in the league, right? That's not just a Tua thing. That's 70% of quarterbacks in the NFL. But it is something with Tua getting this contract. If someone has elevated his value a little bit because of that, just keep in mind that we like the guy, but I don't believe for 1 second that he's ever going to turn into, just NFL-wise, not even fantasy, a top 8 NFL quarterback.
And then if, to JB's point, they do re-up Tyreek for good money to pay for that child support, and then eventually Waddle's going to need a nice little contract. This is a team that may not be able to invest in the O-line where we would hope for fantasy football.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's get into a few trades. Dan, let's start with you. We'll go Dan, Mitch, all the way through these 4. They're all 12-team, and the first 3 are start 11. All right. 12-team Superflex. Tua for Travis Etienne.
That's a good deal for both teams, man. If I'm going to start up, I kind of like, I'd probably be going to get Etienne, and I lean that side. But if you need quarterbacks and Superflex, I'm always going to take Tua. So it really depends on your team need.
Tua, I'm not a fan of Etienne.
Does that, well, you say you're not a fan. I was going to say, does that change if it's +4 for quarterbacks?
No, I'm not a Etienne guy at all.
Why are you hating on Etienne, man? He's good.
He's mid. He's man.
And I think it does balance that out a little bit more when it comes to the start 11. So I wouldn't argue with anybody if they want to Travis Etienne, but like you said, Dan, especially if it's +6 for passing touchdowns, at least +6 for passing touchdowns. Holy moly, word jumble. I will take Tua. All right, Dan, Tua and James Cook for Breece Hall. Again, 12-team Superflex, start 11.
Wow. Start 11. You're getting a quarterback and a stud running back. I'll take Tua and Cook smash. I love
Yeah,
Breece.
I agree with Dan. If it's start 11, I'm probably going to take the package there. But I want to say Breece so bad. But in start 11, it's pretty hard to pass up the quarterback and a very good starting running back.
Man, we're throwing the word stud around early and often today. James Cook is now a stud running back. And I like
24 years old,
I
Dan,
like
you
James
know?
Cook. This isn't anti-James Cook, but the stud is top of the top.
I think he's a top 12 dynasty back at his age and production and role, and all those
fine.
good things are lining up. Coaches speaks even good this offseason, as we'll get into that later.
Yeah. All right. Tua for Daniel Jones, a 26 first and a 25 second, 12-team, start 11.
26 is just, as I always say, a little too off for me. I'm going to go with Tua.
I'm taking Jones in the pick.
Are you?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I mean, when we get to what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later, I don't mind that Giants offense all so much. I think Jones is going to be completely fine as far as fantasy this year, as long as he stays healthy. So if I get a pick on top of that, I'm completely okay with Daniel Jones.
Dan, do you remember a few months ago we did the guest spot and we were given, it was the fantasy wild card, and we had to say a player at the end whose value could rise? I said he's either going to be out of the league or he's going to see a value spike, and that's Daniel Jones. But I'm still going to take Tua versus that package. All right, Tua versus Chris Olave here. 12 teams start 10.
I'll pick the quarterback Tua. I just think the super flex value again. But again, depending on team needs, if you could move a quarterback, I love Olave.
I'm going Olave. Start 10. I'm going to hope I have some other quarterbacks there.
All right.
Okay. All right. So again, as we always say, just some general ideas of the ballpark. And these are all within the last few days from dynastydaddy.com. Just a general idea of the ballpark of what it's going to cost. You see a kind of a range there. And we wanted to throw some different positions, what it's going to cost to acquire Tua, even with the contract here. And, if you're interested, there are, possibilities there. Is it going to happen in every league? Like we say, no, it's not. But at least this gives you an idea, and they're out there. All right. Speaking of 4-year extensions, Mitch, Jordan Love, 4-year extension. The Tua extension, at least in the Discord communication and the Discord around that was discourse around that. Discord around that. Anyway, the Tua conversation was like, yeah, maybe they're overpaying a little bit. Like, it's just, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Teams investing in these quarterbacks, are they really going to put themselves in a position to win a Super Bowl? So from a real life perspective, people are like, meh, but there wasn't like that big of a knock. Then you post the Jordan Love extension at $55 million, the most money ever. All right. And there were some laughing emojis. There was some skepticism. So Jordan Love, where are you on this?
Man, it's hard because this is what the quarterback market is. You could hate it, like it, whatever. Whoever the next quarterback is that's going to get paid is going to get paid more than Jordan Love. That's
Dak.
Yeah, Dak. I mean, Dak's probably going to get $58 million a year, right? I think everyone's biggest issue with it is Jordan Love he was great last season. I think he finished points per game wise, quarterback 7 or 8, I believe.
6, 7, somewhere around there.
Yeah, but he was great, and he has a great coaching staff around him. He has a lot of young pieces that they don't have to pay anytime soon in order to keep building that roster. So I completely see it. So contract aside, it's fine. It's not changing my value on Jordan Love at all because they weren't going to ever move on from him. It wasn't ever going to be like hey, Jordan Love was really good, we're going to let him walk in a year. That just was never on the table for me. So I'm more than happy to go and get him. I think he gives you decent upside each week, and we've seen what that coaching staff can do with him after just 1 year. And I do believe they continue to put better and better talent around him, because the rest of the team, they don't have a whole bunch of high priced players, right? So I think that team is going to continue to build, which I hate as a Lions fan, because I think they're going to be continually good for the next 4 to 5 years. So unlike Tua, I do believe Jordan Love gives you a lot of upside each week, and it's just not based on the talent around him doing it.
So last year, Jordan Love tied for third at 9 air yards per attempt. He was tied for fourth when under pressure. So we don't see that discrepancy there between a clean pocket and under pressure that we saw with Tua. He was 22nd in adjusted completion percentage, tied for 11th in yards per attempt, 5th in touchdown rate. So the thing with Jordan Love, it's like, is he going to sustain that high touchdown rate? But there's a very good chance that happens if he continues to be at the top of the charts in average depth of target, right? So he's not sitting there dinking and dunking. And that was with Christian Watson, who was missing for a good chunk of the season. You have these young receivers, they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to really get their identity as an offensive unit. And now you have another offseason together. I think Jordan Love's value, I don't necessarily hate it. I think there's value to be had pivoting within the quarterback position. Like, I think you could actually get a decent plus with Brock Purdy for Jordan Love. And that's something I would be looking to entertain. You could get I think a very solid plus with Dak Prescott. Go back to Tua, go back to Lawrence, Goff. You can get even more of a plus. So I think those are opportunities to explore. But like from a cross-positional perspective, Jordan Love, he should be a top 15 to 18 dynasty player in Superflex formats.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with Love, man. He's like in the back end of that top 12, maybe the lower end of the, right where you had him, JB. I just think he's a better quarterback than Tua, like overall quarterback. I think his O-line's a little bit better, although they have some pass pro concerns as well. But I think they'll find a way to kind of shore it up. But I like your pivot idea, and I think one of these trades here that you're going to mention, then looks like it presents a good pivot opportunity.
All right. So, Mitch, let's start with you for Jordan Love. Jordan Love for Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and 112 in a 12-team Superflex.
Oh, Jordan Love. Yeah. I mean, I love Nick Chubb. I was early in the offseason. I was like, hey, I want to try to go out and get some of him. But as of right now, I don't want really Nick Chubb on my roster at all. Baker gives me absolutely nothing that I'm really confident in. So, yeah, give me Jordan Love.
Yeah, this wasn't one of the trades where the pivot opportunity was there. Baker's in that class of uncomfortable quarterbacks. It's all these guys that get these 4 or 5 year deals, you feel pretty secure about. You don't have that with Baker. Chubb, even though we love the guy, he's still older, and that 112's late, so you're not going to fix your quarterback position.
All right, Jordan Love in a 25 third for Justin Herbert and Najee Harris, 12-team Superflex, start 10.
Package. Smash.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll say the good package.
Proud of you, Mitchell. This was the pivot opportunity that I saw there. I love Herbert. He's a guy I'm buying on. Everybody's kind of like down and moving him down in the rankings this year. I think this is the best buy low opportunity you'll ever have in Justin Herbert's career right now. And you want to throw me in Najee? That is a smash.
Does that change if it's a 25 second?
Nope.
I'll say no. I'd still go with Herbert in the package, but that's like one of those even scale deals.
Does it change if it's a pair of 25 seconds? At least Mitch is thinking.
No, I want Najee. Like, I'm a huge fan of Najee this year. I think Herbert and Love, value-wise, are kind of whatever. So unless there's going to be a first added to that Love side, I'm taking Herbert and Najee.
Okay. Let's not spend any more time on that one because Mitch is not budging. Nope. Jordan Love for Joe Mixon, Gardner Minshew, and Kyle Pitts, in a 12 team with an extra half point for tight ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan Love, smash, not even hesitating. Like that's one to where I put a question mark in the group chat over it.
Yeah, love smash, man. I was waiting for the start 2 tight end premium to even make that a thought, and it wasn't there.
All right, last one here. Jordan Love for Jahmyr Gibbs and Chase Brown, 12-team Superflex start 10.
Okay, can I answer this in like a private DM? I mean, it's Jordan Love, but it's so hard for me not to take Gibbs. Like I still believe in building through 2 strong running backs right now, but it's going to be Jordan Love with how his value is currently.
Yeah, I'd love to find out on that roster a way to be able to lose Love to get Gibbs and Chase Brown. Definitely love Gibbs, want Gibbs, but if that quarterback situation isn't great, you got to take Love.
Yeah, this kind of looks to me like one of those teams to where maybe they had Jordan Love on their roster for the last 4 years. They already have enough good quarterbacks around him, and they're like, hey, can I get out of Jordan Love and get a Gibbs and a Chase Brown? I would prefer Chase Brown to just be a little bit extra, just a little bit more than that. But this could easily, with Jordan Love, there could be a lot of teams out there who haven't really needed him. And now all of a sudden his value boomed, and now they can start to get these trades off to where they're getting an elite talent at another position.
Really quick, it's not on the sheet, so throw a curveball at you here. Jordan Love or Jaden Daniels, +6, -2 scoring. Mitch, I'm going to start with
Jordan.
Mitch.
Sorry, Jordan Love.
What was that scoring again, JB?
+6, -2.
Yeah, I have Love there right now, but man, tough to pass up that rushing quarterback.
Jordan Love or Caleb Williams?
I'm on the Caleb train. I'm going to go Caleb.
Can't do it, man. Can't do it.
All right. And now, just to, you guys don't have to answer these, but just very quickly, a few other trades that had other pieces. Like this one, 16 teams, start 9. Jordan Love and Dontavian Wicks for Tyreek Hill, Trevor Lawrence, a 25 first and a 25 second.
Ooh.
Let's see. Here's one. Jordan Love and Chris Godwin for Bo Nix, Tank Dell, and a 25 first. There's the Jordan Love and Chase Brown for Raheem Mostert and Tua. Jordan Love for 225 first, a 26 first, and a 25 second. So, like, there are higher ranges here, right? But I do think even with the contract extension, because like you said, Mitch, nobody really thought Jordan Love was going anywhere.
Right.
I don't think at this point anybody really thought Tua was going anywhere. Maybe 2 years ago, there was that concern with Tua. At times previously with Jordan Love, what are they going to do moving forward? But like, I still think there are opportunities, and probably in situations, I think Mitch, you mentioned this, where a team has 2 other very solid quarterbacks. It's going to be really tough to acquire Jordan Love or Tua if somebody's rolling in with Jordan Love, Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix or something like that.
Right.
That's going to be very challenging. All right, let's spend just a little bit of time. There were just a little bit. There were 2 wide receivers that restructured here. They were Amari Cooper and Courtland Sutton. Last year, Amari Cooper, 15.1 points per game in PPR formats. He had 4 games over 20 points, 51.5 points in week 16. Absolutely weak winner. Tied for 13th. Dan, you're pounding away on that keyboard, man. I don't know what it did to you, but it pissed you off because you might need a new keyboard after this one. Wow. 2.31 yards per route run last year for Amari Cooper. And even if you remove that whopper of a game in week 16, 12.5 points per game. Mitch, Amari Cooper, I from previous conversations, it sounded like he was somebody you were okay riding off into the sunset.
Yeah, I love the dude. Not quite as much as Dan, but I'm close. I think he is the perfect wide receiver 2 on your team. He gives you legit wide receiver 1 upside every single week. He is that good. He can give you those 50-point weeks, but more than likely he give you those 30-point weeks that we'll see far more often. His floor just, it's fair. Like, we really like him. And so if I can walk into the season with him being my wide receiver 2 on the vast majority of my teams, I'm happy. And real quick, you're going to talk about Courtland Sutton. I'll just hit him real quick. I think he's great as like a wide receiver 3. He's barely going to ever give you wide receiver 2 upside, but he's the best wide receiver in a bad position, in a bad team. So just give me that guy who they're going to end up targeting 8 to 10 times a game, and I could just throw him into my wide receiver 3, and I'll figure out my flexes after that.
Damn.
Yeah, man. I think Coop's one of the most. I think he's going to go down as one of the more underrated receivers in NFL history, probably. And that may sounds like something big, but the guy's just great every year, and he is kind of quiet. I know they don't say he makes those big, spectacular plays, and Dallas chose to get Gallup over Cooper. I've heard so many different things this week. Dallas just wasn't paying another guy $100+ million. They should have hung on to him a little longer. They didn't. He's doing great in Cleveland, but him and Sutton, man, like I think they're going to have big enough seasons this year that they can, impact your roster. They have 2-3 really good years available. You're going to evaluate your rosters accordingly. Yeah, they're hitting that age where if you could move them for something good, yeah, I'd love to, but it's not always realistic. So if I could take that production, I think these guys are not only good, but they're really critical for their teams. Like, they are the number one guy in Cleveland and Denver. And, those offenses may not be super explosive, but I think they're good enough.
Yeah, and then I know a lot of people, they'll point to the fact that Amari Cooper, a lot of that production was with Joe Flacco, quarterback. How does that fade with Deshaun Watson? Or can he take the next step here and Deshaun Watson kind of returns to form like we saw in Houston? I know David Njoku, he's kind of making some splash plays at camp. But Amari Cooper, Courtland Sutton, like you said, Dan, good luck moving them for what you want to get in return today. But when the season's here, if either of them are producing, I think it's going to be a heck of a lot easier, especially if there's some injuries, especially if there's some bye weeks that are piling up and somebody is looking for those flex play options, or Amari Cooper, maybe a wide receiver 2 option. Only Courtland Sutton, he had 14 touchdowns in his first 5 seasons. Even with the much hated Russell Wilson, he had 10 touchdowns last year. 10. Compared to 14 in his first 5 seasons. He had his highest yards per route run since 2019 at 1.66. Not extraordinary, but he is going to be a critical piece, like you said, Dan, in that Denver offense. And he's going to be somebody that Bo Nix is going to need in order to be successful. So I just think Courtland Sutton is a name that, you're excited if you have him on your roster, that the fact that he was able to restructure, you have your depth piece, and maybe there's that sell window. And certainly, I mean, you could probably buy for a very, very nice price if somebody is not contending. So check those trade baits, see where the teams that have him are positioned within your league, because there might be opportunities there. Brandon Aiyuk, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, none of them are practicing. Let's change this up a little bit. Dan, 1 being the soonest, 3 being the latest. What order do these guys get their contract extension?
That's a good question. I say Jamar Chase is definitely last, because their GM's on record for saying this is not the time to negotiate. That's the offseason, which is just mind-boggling. Cincinnati's always been kind of squirrely with those things. So, I mean, unless this holdout breaks things, I think that's kind of the last. I'm going to, and not trying to sound like a fanboy, but I'm going to hope there's a little bit of momentum here with some of the talk of Dallas saying, hey, Lamb's going to be the first to sign. Jerry just offered him another contract yesterday. So hopefully that was a good enough of an offer to make him first, with Aiyuk pretty close behind. We shall see.
Do any of these guys, Mitch, play 2024 without the extension in place?
I think Lamb and Chase do, to be honest. I think Ayuk's going to end up being signed. It looks like, John Lynch is, walking him back. We've seen the video of that. Chase, I completely agree with Dan. Chase is not going to be signed before the start of the season, in my opinion. Maybe it ends up happening and great for him. I'm not holding anything against these guys. I think it's a smart business move. It's what you should use any little bit of leverage that you have. And their only leverage is like, hey, I'm not going to practice. That's all that they have. They can't even not show up for week 1 because then their game checks start getting slashed. And it's not like they've made a whole bunch in their career already. So I don't know, man. Dallas, it's weird. I don't understand how they haven't done Dak's deal, Lamb's deal. Micah's coming up. I don't know how you couldn't get in front of that, but maybe they have another plan. Maybe they got something else going on in the background that we don't know. But as of right now, it just seems like I think the 49ers are going to get it done. They want to try to make that Super Bowl push without one of their star pieces on offense being pissed off at them the whole year. So I think there's a strong chance the Aiyuk one gets done. In Lamb, I'm probably going to put it 65% gets done and Chase at like 5. I just don't see it happening.
We've seen the Niners often cave. You know, maybe so for that perspective, Mitch, I could see you're maybe winning this win, and Aiyuk's the first one to get inked. I thought one interesting post this week was, I think it was like a former Philadelphia Eagles general manager, and he said, you know, Jerry and Steven, he goes, I think they don't get enough credit for certain things they do, but he always felt the Eagles got a competitive advantage for whatever reason. Dallas waits late, you know, so that's like that one piece of management that even us as outsiders are saying, what's the holdup here? All these guys are signing. So hopefully it breaks soon. They're normally the last, and now it's time. They're last. Like they're the guys that need to be signed. I think for fantasy, you know, you're talking 3 of the top 10 receivers here. I don't think there's really much of any impact, and you probably won't succeed. But these 3 receivers and or their quarterbacks, if there is some sort of opportunity to buy, I would at least try.
Yeah.
Maybe it scares one owner somewhere away. I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned the quarterbacks because in the Dynasty Theory tiers, Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, and Dak Prescott, all 3 are highlighted in green. Is Joe Burrow still going to be expensive? Yes, but I don't think you have to pay top dollar for him right now. You know, whether it's concern over coming back from the injury, whether it's concern about what's going to happen with Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is going to be there long term. And it's almost like Dallas needs to look in the mirror and say, maybe we need an actual general manager and not some 150-year-old dinosaur that has his head so far up his own. Like, how can you not see it, dude?
Well, hold on. But on the Dallas side, they're one of the best drafting teams in the NFL. So it's like, yeah, they mess up on these contracts constantly over and over and over. But draft pick wise, Jerry still knows what he's doing because they don't really miss on draft picks. It has
brought them the Super Bowl. It has brought them the Super Bowl appearances over the years. I'll tell you that.
It's funny, it's JB, my like 13-year-old going on 14-year-old son sounds just like you, man. He's like, I can't stand Jerry Jones. He's all fired up. But I was like, buddy, it's not going to get any better because it's just going to be Stephen Jones right behind him doing the same exact thing, you know? Yeah. So it is what it is.
Now, is this animosity and hatred coming from me because of all of my Dak shares? Maybe, partly. Like I see Dak stuff on Pristine Auction. I'm like, I would love to bid. I would love to get some, but I don't want to get it. And then boom, he's gone somewhere, somewhere else next year.
Oakland Raiders starting quarterback.
There isn't even a team in Oakland.
JB to that, man. Like last year, I got the CeeDee Lamb helmet. I've got Micah's jersey. I've got a Dak helmet. Like I am nervous as could be. Like they need extensions, or I don't know what I'm gonna do with that memorabilia.
Yeah, that's how I was with the Justin Jefferson helmet and Jamar Chase. Jefferson, we got it done. Let's get Chase next. Very quickly, Russell Wilson has a bit of a calf injury. He hasn't been practicing. It's opened the door for Justin Fields. Has Russell Wilson missing time given the opportunity to Justin Fields? And is he going to take that, is he going to take that starting position? Is he going to grab the bull by the horns? And maybe Russ gets week 1, week 2, week 3, but does Fields show enough now to warrant that opportunity eventually?
To answer your question, maybe, but I think from a dynasty value side, this is why people still love Justin Fields, right? Is any little thing on Russell Wilson, then all of a sudden Justin Fields goes out there and has a pass that Pickens catches down the sideline. Everyone's like, oh, he's back. I'm willing to get a first for him, right? I think it's just know that this is how the fantasy community reacts to rushing quarterbacks now. Even if Jaden Daniels doesn't live up to the hope that we think he has, he will always have value as long as he can show something on the rushing side. So in my view, I think the Steelers' first 8 games are just way too easy. I don't think Russell's going to lose his job because I think the Steelers are actually going to do very well the first half of the season. But, there are going to be people out there who value Justin Fields as a late first still. And if you can get that or an early second, I would ship him off every day of the week because I don't believe he is a starting NFL quarterback when it comes down to it at the end of the year.
We talk about range of trades that we see. How about this? Justin Fields for a 25 first, 12-team Superflex. Justin Fields for Daniel Jones, 12-team Superflex. Justin Fields for Sam Darnold in a third, 12-team Superflex. Justin Fields for Aiden O'Connell, Jaleel McLaughlin, Gardner Minshew, 12-team start 9. Justin Fields and a 26 first for Jared Goff. Justin Fields for a 26 second and 26 third. So the range is out there. So if you have Justin Fields, I mean, you're probably loving that he's getting opportunities here. You're probably not looking to move him for a second. So it's going to be very interesting to see how those trades continue because for the most part, I think if you wanted to move off of Justin Fields, he's probably off of your roster for the most part. If you wanted to acquire him, you probably have him already. And now it's like, wait and see, is it going to pay off one way or the other? So I just think, I thought it was worth bringing up because it's a big point of conversation here in Pittsburgh.
I wish I had some Justin Fields shares to give for a second, JB. Like, man, I'm looking at this Pittsburgh situation as other than maybe the Raiders is the worst dynasty quarterback situation to have. Fields might help you for a few games this year if he does start and gets those rushing points. But outside of that, I just don't see a long-term future for really either of these guys. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I have both tiered together because you have the upside of Justin Fields. Like the upside is there. Even if it's a spot start, like sometimes we see, like we saw Jake Browning going for seconds last year. You get 2, 3, 4 starts, especially if it's towards playoff time. Like the ceiling is there for Justin Fields. Unfortunately, we know what the floor is as well. And then Russell Wilson, what's the ceiling? Right. And I lived that every week last year. What's the ceiling?
I think this is really going back, JB, to your old school Steelers smash mouth football. They're going to build that defense. They're starting to invest in the O-line again. They're going to grind the ball. They got 2 really good running backs. They are just going to manage the game, which it's just awful for Dynasty. And I just hope, my George Pickens and owners Pat Freiermuth shares could survive.
Well, I from a passing perspective, I think it's going to be concentrated enough to those 2. And then we'll talk about Roman Wilson here in a minute, but let's kind of transition here into some training camp hype. Dan, I know you love the actual football side of it. We all know that. Coach Dan, you love the coach speak and the hype videos. So I want to know, who has you all jazzed up? Who has you just, oh my, like it's your cup of coffee in the morning. You see that player, that video, and you're like, I'm good to go for the day. Put the Folgers away. I got a hype video.
No, I do love this stuff to a certain degree. So for me, I'm trying to decipher the coach speak from, what's coach speak that's going to really apply to fantasy football versus what's just the coach giving the media what they want. And I'm trying to look at guys that myself or the market is kind of high on, and there's something that's going to change this year. So my top guys that I'm kind of looking at with some early coach speak, I'm just really feeling JSN this year. They're not talking about Mitch's post from a year ago or whatever that fun Twitter post was about, but just in general,
haters, man.
There's been some speak that's really good. and I think he's going to ascend this year. Guy I've never really been on, but I'm just starting to really feel, and with Kirk Cousins, is Kyle Pitts. I think he might just have his best year yet. And then the one that everyone's like, I'm not falling for, and they love to talk about on the Twitter machine, is J.K. Dobbins. Man, when Daniel Jeremiah speaks and says, look out for this guy, and then I start watching him kind of run out there, and then I hear his speak and the coaches speak, like it's just all adding up that he is really going to be fantasy relevant this year. So
wait, wasn't he limited again already though?
Yes.
And Gus Edwards was limited already?
Yes.
Gus is limited. I think Dobbins are going to continue to be smart with, but like he feels good, looks good. I'm not worried about too much about the limited stuff here in camp. Like my sleeper messages are going off as we're watching this. James Cook's already questionable today. Like every guy I like is questionable right now.
James Cook isn't coming off of blown ACLs, blown Achilles.
Again,
at least in the NFL.
I'm a Daniel Jeremiah believer, and I'm a Jim Harbaugh believer, and I think there's going to be something to him. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be J.K. Dobbins of old there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's like first round, trade your second round pick for him. I'm just saying I like him on my rosters at a very cheap value, and I think he's going to help me this year. So I'm buying that coach speak. He will be a big part of what the Chargers are doing. Their O-line is set to mash. Like they got a really good O-line and some run blockers that like they're going to smash the ball. And you can't just stack the box. Like Herbert will pick you apart. So I just think that there's something there in what the Chargers are doing. And then the last guy I'm going to give JB, that's not going to be for a couple of years yet, but he was a late running back draftee. His path is blocked for a little bit, but I really like Braylon Allen. It's not just because he looks jacked in his uniform there. That kid's only 20. He is literally only 20 years old, looks good. I like everything about this kid. And I think most teams use two running backs anyway. You want to kind of not throw Breece Hall to the wolves completely. I think there's something there in Braylon Allen.
He has stood out for me as well. I think. I mean,
Mitch is the reason why. So after this, we go in the high piece that we're not buying. His little highlight run that everyone was showing yesterday is the reason why I want to talk about backup running backs in the next segment.
No, and that's great. We had a question in the Discord when we dropped today's show topic, and it was like, what backup running backs, what running back twos can be relevant without an injury? Mm-hmm. And I think finding those opportunities, because you have the standalone value and like a Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, but then you have that contingent upside where if one of them were to get injured, look out. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery is probably the highest of the 1-2 punches. Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, one of the highest of the 1-2 punches. But there are other opportunities. Is it going to be somebody like a Braylon Allen? Is it going to be a Deneric Prince? Is it going to be a Will Shipley? Now, I don't know. But those are guys that I would like on my roster. And I was picking up. I was, like I started the show with my lack of engagement on the waiver wire. Even a week late, I was able to pick up a lot of Deneric Prince. Is it going to pan out? Probably not. But me and Fab. It's like a little dandelion in the wind, just blowing away, right? So, Mitch, are there any... sorry, Dan.
If I can just sneak one more in, guys, and just because he's not on your list, and a lot of those guys you mentioned and are on your list, JB, I'm looking at, but one guy I just noticed that was not on your list that I really like a lot is Josh Downs, and he's a guy that the hype has really picked up. I mean, their GM saying he's ready to break out. Like when you use the term breakout, like that's just a little higher level of speak for me. And I like the guy going into the year anyway. Richardson's back healthy. He's a guy I want to buy.
I don't know, man. If everyone is down on Michael Pittman because, hey, they're not going to pass a lot, what kind of work is he going to get? The wide receiver 2 in that offense isn't overly high for me.
JB or Mitch, I think he could support the two of them in different ways.
Oh, I think he can too. I just think it's funny how we could be like, hey, we really like Downs, but no, you can't buy into Pittman at his value because he's never going to get a touchdown because Richardson's going to run for all of them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there on that speak, Mitch. And I know Mitch has always been high on Pittman, and I still am. I just think Pittman's more the RPO clutch guy, and I think Downs is that big play dude, and there's a role for both.
All right, so Mitch, are there any guys that you're buying the hype? Are you
100%. There
are you Mr.
so-
Pessimist?
No. So I actually do have like an anti-hype at the end of my little spiel here, but no one's going to be shocked by these guys. Jameson Williams has had a great camp so far, but that's what we need to see from him. He's never been his rookie year. He wasn't healthy going into camp. Last year, he got suspended. So he was in camp, but then he didn't play the first 6 games, I think it ended up being. I don't remember, but he's had a great camp so far, but everyone knows I love him. I'm going to be high on him. As far as underdog over-unders, that 700 receiving mark they have on him, I'm have quite a few overs on that bad boy. But dude, like, I know Malik Neighbors is very highly ranked. I mean, John, I was just looking at yours. You have him at wide receiver 11. I'm more than happy to pay wide receiver 8 prices for him. I think if he stays healthy, 170, 180 targets is easily in his wheelhouse. I was reading about the Giants staff writers yesterday, and one of them was saying about how Malik Neighbors went up to Daniel Jones, and he said, hey, if it's pressed, just throw it up when it's done. He's like, I guarantee you I will get off of it. So next play, Daniel Jones throws it up, off press, and Malik Neighbors catches it. Like, he is just that dude to me. I mean, I think we throw around the term alpha a lot as far as wide receivers. I believe Malik Neighbors is actually going to be an alpha, and the Giants just have nothing. I mean, we had a little discussion in the comments earlier about, hey, Theo Johnson is back and Daniel Bellinger, those guys are going to get 2 to 3 targets a game. I really, really think Malik Neighbors is going to get close to 10. I know it's hard for wide receivers to average that throughout the season, but he has the talent to do it if he can stay healthy.
I actually think he will average about 10 targets per game.
I think he will.
Yeah, but Mitch, if I could just
go ahead.
that too, man, I think we really got 2 special guys in this year's rookie class with Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors. And you're watching those Giants Hard Knocks, and even Twitter.
Hey, and flag really quick. Rome Odunze is not far off. If it wasn't a crowded situation, the conversation would be a little bit different. So don't throw shade. Put the umbrella away. Don't throw shade on Rome Odunze, okay?
I think I did repost on the X that that some talk of him, he should have never been the Bears wide receiver 3. He's a legit dude that was drafted very high. So we got some special guys, man. But hey, Wan'Dale Robinson's going to eat a little in the Giants too. He'll take some pressure off Mitch, and they're going to throw a lot because I think they're going to be playing from behind.
Yeah, I think so. And then my anti-hype piece, that's like, well, we're not to the piece that I'm buying into this. The Oakland quarterbacks have been horrendous.
Las Vegas. What year
Did
is
I say Oakland again? Dude, it's early here. You're fine, John. Just breathe. It's all right. It's all right. We'll get through it.
What year is it?
Believe it or not, everybody knew.
He'll be talking about David Carr next too, JB.
Hey, so there's a reason why I don't say
talking about
Carr's
David
first
Carr.
name ever. I never say Carr's first name because I cannot get it right. Anyways, I actually have Oakland in my notes. That's why I read it. But the Raiders starting quarterbacks have been horrendous. And a lot of the talk with the Raiders staff, writing staff, right, has been, well, it's not only their fault, it's because the defense has looked really good and their wide receivers aren't getting open. I'm like, well, that doesn't make me feel any better either if the wide receivers can't do anything. I know Oakland has a good defense, but it's a young coach. Did I say Oakland again?
You did. Just keep rolling with it.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it. We're just going to roll with this. That's fine. This is like the old Washington football team. That's who they'll always be to me. But here, if I do this, this will fix it. Watch. Okay, I'll never say it again.
I'm waiting for the San Diego Chargers to pop up.
Well, might as well. It's not my fault teams change locations, right? Like my brain can't work this through. But the reason why I brought it up is I was willing to have like a Gardner Minshew as my quarterback 3 going into the year. I was like, it's okay. He'll give me enough bye week flex appeal that I can make this work. Right now, I mean, I had no faith in Aiden O'Connell, so I wouldn't want him. I was like, hey, Minshew can at least give me something. I don't think either of these guys are going to do anything at this point. The only player I want on that team at this point is Devontae Adams, with the hope that he gets traded at some point so I don't have to deal with it. But I'm off this whole offense. I know Dan is reaching, and I swear if this is a Zamir White thing, I'm just going to start to cry.
No, it's a Brock Bowers challenge flag there,
No,
man.
he's not even
gonna be a
start.
he's gonna be a problem in the NFL. Stop buying that Michael Meyer hype, whatever, that he's still good and stuff. Brock Bowers is gonna be a problem. But I do agree with the bad quarterback situation, Mitch. Like I said, the Steelers and the Raiders, I think they're going to play the same kind of football: smash mouth, grind the ball, hope the defense keeps them in games. And in games that they're not playing from behind, we might get a little more. They'll hang in there. But I think they're also going to be playing from behind a lot.
We're going to see two thrilling 6-3 Charger Raiders games.
Yes,
140 rush attempts between the two teams. All right, I have a list of about 50 names really quick.
Oh God.
But these are just positive reports. I'm not saying I'm buying into them, but Dan's
the question was, what are you buying into?
I know, but I just listen. I spent a lot.
He wants
of
to
my
list
morning.
every single
listen.
report that's been on the.
No. I took some off, but I think a lot of these are worth mentioning. And also, I spent my morning with the three maniacs in my house and trying to drink some coffee and going through these reports. So I'm going to name these names. Damn it, okay? Positive reports so far. Jalen Hurts has been fantastic, and I know a lot of people. There's been negative thoughts with him, but in relation to that, Devontae Smith, a strong camp. Dallas Goedert, still a guy that I'm looking to buy. We talked about him last week on the tight end show, Mitch. Geno Smith has apparently looked fantastic. Will Levis has looked strong. JJ McCarthy has been up and down, but he's trending up. It looks like he's getting a little bit more confidence. Justin Fields, it sounds like he's done the most with his opportunity up to this point. Kirk Cousins, what Achilles injury. Dan, you ready for this? Tony Pollard can do everything. Now that's hype Dan's buying into. Javonte Williams, what was it? His death has been greatly exaggerated. I think that was the quote, right?
I'm challenging everybody on our Dynasty Theory flag football team in Canton to take the Javonte Williams diet until our game. All right, no snacks after 7 p.m. Can we do that?
No.
Hey, Mitch, I'm gonna be like Malik Neighbors. I'm just gonna whisper in your ear. If there's press coverage, throw it up. I won't get near it, but throw it up. As I have my drink in my hand, I'm sure. All right, Javonte Williams. I have him in green on the sheets, and I just think the reports here have kind of reaffirmed that. Khalil Herbert, kind of buried on the depth chart, but he's looked good. Braylon Allen, Deneric Prince coming off as the number 2 there. Craig Reynolds, if anything happens to David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds could step in and be a solid number 2 there for Mitch's Lions.
I thought Mitch threw that on the show notes.
I did. Will Shipley, he's getting first team reps. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. It can be a nice 1-2 punch there. Obviously, they're going to be the smash mouth brand of football that Dan mentioned earlier. Dylan Lobb, I know Mitch is all about that Oakland Raiders offense, but he's going to possibly add something in the pass game out of the backfield. Chase Brown, he's getting a lot of reps ahead of Zach Moss. Or did I miss anything on Zach Moss being out? Or so a lot of people on the Zach Moss hype train maybe pump the brakes. Lad McConkey, all systems go. Devontae Smith, Roman Wilson has looked strong at Steelers camp. Mitch, JSN, he's your boy. Dan, he's your boy. Jamison Williams, Keenan Allen, the QB friendly wide receiver there. We're seeing Jonathan Mingo get moved for thirds because he had 2 catches at training camp. So if you can get Mingo off your roster, for some reason you have him. Same with John Mechie. Zay Jones, he might be the wide receiver 2 in Arizona. Jordan Whittington, I don't know what targets he's going to get for the Rams, but people like him. Dallas Goedert, David Njoku. Greg Dulcich has actually moved up for me a little bit.
The different tight end situation is interesting.
Can he stay healthy?
Yep, that's what we need. And I want to just comment on the Mechie one, man. I think he's like an injured, like he needs someone else to get injured, or maybe he's a year away. Or like this Houston offense might just be ridiculous because I think he could be like the best wide receiver 4 in football there. I mean, he's a former first-round pick, and I know he had some major health stuff. I think he's a guy that needed to be an extra year removed from that, but he really does look good.
Second. He was the second-round pick.
Was he second-round, Mechie?
Mm-hmm.
He was.
Second round. I just
high second, beginning of second, maybe.
Just a crazy start to his career, and obviously the health issues. Now, negative reports. These are the ones that I think you need to take note of. Sam Howell, he's not challenging Geno Smith. Sorry, guys. Sorry, the folks that said this is Sam Howell's offense. It's not going to be. Sam Darnold has been up and down also, but now it seems like he's trending down. Jerry, get the checkbook out because Trey Lance is not your quarterback of the future. Have you seen those clips, Dan?
He's had a couple off throws there. He's had a couple off throws.
Aiden O'Connell, that's on my list, Mitch. Kendre Miller, you gotta be healthy to be on the roster. Like, that was not a glowing endorsement. Quentin Johnston, yeah, there's coach speak, but if you dude can't track the ball. And then there's the one of him going up and getting it, but then there's the one of him looking over here or over there. It's over there. We don't know. Brian Thomas might be the fourth option. I'm still buying Brian Thomas. Ricky Parasol just wasn't on the field. A.D. Mitchell, is he going to see the field early? Maybe not as often as people would like. Rondell Moore running with the 3s and up to the 2s. That ship has sailed. And Javon Baker, just pump the brakes there. He might not be there yet.
Final thoughts.
I got through that list quickly. Dan, for the 250.
I was just going to say you skipped a whole thing, but that's fine. It's
what?
All right. What is a piece of hype that you just aren't buying?
I thought you said I thought you led into that.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
No.
Covered it in the list.
No, this is going to be my final thought. This is great.
Perfect. All right, Dan, for the 255th time, talking about some 2024 training camp news and hype and maybe some lack thereof. What are your final thoughts for the listeners?
Fun episode, boys. Before I get back to my IDP draft there with my boy Micah, hey, DraftKings DFS pricing's out and slates have been released, so I am so stoked. I'm probably going to do some solo pods with some DFS and some football card unboxing coming up. So just, keep an eye on that. My FF Coach Dan, any social media page, you can find it, and going to have some fun with those things. But good show, boys.
Mitch, share your final thoughts.
First off, I will try to burn Oakland from my mind, so it's Las Vegas. I mean, I probably should do that at some point. But the only thing I was going to say is I'm not buying any of the early running back talk. Like that Braylon Allen highlight video that everyone was going over, they're in shells. That's it. They have shoulder pads and helmets. If your running back doesn't look good in shells when he's not getting tackled and he weighs the same as linebackers, I am very worried. But he looked good, so that's great. But I kind of expect him to look good. It's like the whole when there's like a wide receiver on a treadmill and he's running fast. I'm like, good. Like, I wouldn't want him to look slow running on the treadmill. But that's it. That's all I was going to say earlier, is just be a little hesitant on this running back stuff because they're not really tackling yet. So we'll see what happens when it's actually live popping drills.
All right, wet blanket. Come on. You're telling me that Craig Reynolds isn't going to make an impact this year?
Hey, no. Craig's all right. Craig will be all right. Everyone else, no, but Craig will be all right.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, drop a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have some big news coming up here in a couple weeks regarding Dynasty Theory. But yeah, make sure you drop that like and subscribe. For Mitch Sorensen, Dan Lamagna, who has not moved in about 30 seconds, I think he's frozen. I'm John Bauer. We'll see everybody next week.